Meeting being called to order. The time is 7:02. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law is enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the business administrator, board secretary, as well as notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Zarentra?
Here.
Dr. Morell?
Here.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Reicher?
Here.
Mr. Totaro?
Here.
Mr. Turco?
Here.
Mr. Clavijo?
Here. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity, early on the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, and citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and or directly related to the operation of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or the presiding officer and shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised, but will provide a response if and when appropriate. The board asks the members of the public to be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during the public session should carefully consider their comments since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm that the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Public be heard, agenda items only. Seeing no one, we'll go on with the agenda. Approval of minutes, September 21st, 2021, regular meeting, public and private. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Scott. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Zarentra?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Dr. Morell?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes. No correspondence. Moving on to our reports. We'll take our student council rep report, please.
Hi, good evening everyone. I'm happy to report that the student council activities that I mentioned in last month's report were a huge success. Spirit Week definitely brought out the competitiveness in all the students, as many people went all out for each Spirit Day. The seniors came out on top with the most spirit by finishing in first place for hallway decorating and by winning first overall. The seniors' hallway theme was Toy Story. The freshmen came in second for hallway decorating with a tropical theme, then the juniors with a SpongeBob theme, and finally the sophomores with a fall/Halloween theme. Everyone had a great night, bonding with their classmates and decorating their hallways. During halftime of the homecoming football game was the annual homecoming ceremony, where the court was announced and crowned. Congratulations to all that were nominated, and a special congrats to our homecoming king and queen, John Alshma and Ruby Conway. Our field goal fan winner, Gabby Del Val, enjoyed the game with her friends from the couch in the end zone. The Student Council is bringing back an old HHS tradition. Tomorrow night, October 20th, we are hosting a Beartober bonfire. It'll be from 6:30 to 9 p.m. on the baseball field. We are opening this event up to HHS students, parents, and staff. Tickets are only $5 to get in, and they can be bought tomorrow night at the bottom of the hill at the admission table. We have a DJ coming, outdoor games, hot chocolate, and food trucks. The food trucks coming are Rollin' in the Dough Pizza, Chicken and Waffles on Wheels, and Johnny Zeppelin. Make sure to bring extra money to buy all this good food from the food trucks. It'll be an amazing night to hang out with your friends and enjoy the bonfire. Last week, the high school hosted an open house for the current 8th graders. The 8th graders were given a tour, a presentation, and the opportunity to visit all of our clubs and sports teams. They were also able to visit the broadcasting room to experience the studio, the art room to see students work, the culinary room, and the media center. It was a great night to welcome our future Bears. Girls soccer continues their incredible season. They are currently ranked 5th in the Bergen record and number 20 in NJ.com top programs in the state. Brianna Andreoli continues her remarkable career by becoming the first soccer player in Hawthorne history to record 100 goals in her career. Gabby Del Val also achieved 200 career saves in net. Congrats to both Brianna and Gabby. You're making Hawthorne proud. The team looks to continue their run in the county tournament and take home another league title in the coming weeks before entering into the state tournament at the end of the month. Football continues their strong season with wins over New Milford, Glenrock, Garfield, and Pompton Lakes. Senior night will be this Friday, October 22nd, for the band, cheerleaders, and football players. Boys soccer pulled a huge upset in the county tournament by beating 5th-seeded Pompton Lakes 1-0 in overtime. The Bears look to continue their Cinderella run in the tournament this past weekend against Wayne Valley, but unfortunately lost 1-0. The boys should be proud for making it that far when they were the 13th-seeded underdogs. Tennis began their season and they continue to improve. Unfortunately, the girls have been through a tough stretch with many matches in a row. However, they're steadily improving and look to close out their season this week on a positive note. Volleyball pulled a huge victory over Saddlebrook at home. Saddlebrook at the time was seeded number 1 in Group 1. The Bears look to continue their strong season as they prepare for the state tournament. The marching band had an amazing performance at their first competition in Randolph, where they took 3rd place out of 6 bands. The Bears performed even better in their second competition at Midland Park High School, winning 1st place ahead of Elmore Park and Waldeck High School, as well as winning the Best Marching, Best Percussion, and Best Color Guard captions. Congratulations to the band and keep up the great work. The band is hosting their annual pasta dinner on Thursday, October 28th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Come out to support the band and have some pasta prepared by Lud Neves from Hilton. Tickets can be purchased from Mr. Williams in the band room or any of the students in the marching band. Please purchase your tickets ahead of time this week, as there will be a very limited number of tickets available at the door. Takeout options are also available. They had a great time showing off the music program at the 8th grade open house. They hosted LMS band students during the homecoming game to introduce them to what it's like to be part of the high school marching program. Spotlight October library events include the following. Once again, the High School Library Media Center has welcomed comfort dogs and therapy dogs one day each week. The dogs spend the lunch period with a small group of students selected by their guidance counselors based on their needs to refocus and calm their energies midday. A different group of students enjoy the dog in the library program each week. This month, library displays in books highlights National Hispanic Heritage Month and National Italian American Month. Additionally, books of horror and mystery have been very popular as students check out books in record numbers in order to participate in the high school's new Drop Everything and Read program. Each book sign-out gives the student a raffle ticket for the October drawing for a bucket of Halloween goodies. This month, each sophomore English class came to the Library Media Center to participate in an orientation program to introduce the resources, materials, and activities offered through the library that support the academic, creative, and social needs of our students. The sophomores missed this orientation last year as freshmen. On October 20th, Library Media Specialist Mrs. DiGeronimo will attend a meeting of the Bergen Passaic Association of School Librarians focusing on the topic of library renovation. That's all I have to report for October.
Good job, Angela. Thanks for your detailed report. Mrs. Brio, turn over the floor to you now.
Thank you. So just to piggyback on a couple of things that Angela spoke about. First of all, I thought our open house, our big open house went very well. It was very well attended. I appreciate our high school students who provided tours to the parents and incoming freshmen, our current 8th graders. I thought that was a nice touch to have some of our students providing tours before the general meeting. But overall, I thought the night went really well, and I hope that the parents and students felt the same. I also want to encourage everybody to attend the bonfire. It's been a long time since we've had a bonfire here at the high school. Prior to It's even before me being here. It's been a long time, so I know people are, a lot of the students and the staff are all very excited about it. So I encourage you to come out and enjoy the bonfire tomorrow night. I also just want to congratulate Gabby and Brianna on their accomplishments, as well as our high school marching band. I did attend the Midland Park performance, and our students, our band members did a fantastic job. I'm very proud of them. I'm proud to be part of the event. So in regard to my report, just a couple of things to report on. First, I want to talk about something that was shared with the board, our ESSER 3, or American Rescue Plan, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. So the district received funds, federal funds in the amount of $3,314,844. We did share with the board how the funds will be allocated. That was put together administratively. We met administratively to review the funds that were available in the different categories and how that money would be allocated going forward. We will be holding school level committee meetings in the coming week, really, to allow for some staff feedback in the district. And of course, a synopsis of how these funds are being allocated is currently available on our district website. If you go to the bottom of the page, under the BOE tab, there is a document there which shares how the funds are being allocated. And we encourage parents and community members to take a look at it. And you're welcome to comment using the Board of Ed email address that's provided on that page. So that document is currently available on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the board office and we'll direct you to where the document is located. Also, each year the district is required to report graduation results. So as part of this report, I'm going to provide the total number of students graduating in the prior school year, the total number of graduates who met the graduation assessment requirements by passing a substitute competency test. There was no portfolio appeals, but that's normally part of the process. And then meeting an alternative requirement, whether it be by an alternative test or specified in their IEP. All right, so just briefly, I'll give you the numbers. Last year, all 150 Hawthorne High School seniors graduated from Hawthorne High School. 3 of those 150 students moved on to the Bear Cave. Well, 2 to our Bear Cave and 1 to an out-of-district 18 to 21-year-old program. 59 students met the graduation requirement by passing the NJSLA, ELA, or math, ELA and math. 25 students met the graduation requirement via the NJSLA or a substitute competency test, a combination of the two. 30 students met the graduation requirement by passing solely a substitute competency test such as ASVAB, Acuplacer, SAT, PSAT. Those are examples of substitute competency tests. 8 students met the graduation requirement via alternative requirements specified in their IEP. And 24 students met the requirement because they were waived due to Executive Order 214. Now those students would mainly be our portfolio appeal students, but because the requirement was waived in Executive Order 214, those students graduated without completing that portfolio appeal process. It was just based on their academic performance throughout the year. So again, all 150 students graduated as last year. The other thing I want to quickly report on in October, as you know, each year we have 2 weeks, one being the Week of Respect and one being School Violence Awareness Week. In terms of the Week of Respect, that was October 4th through 8th. And activities at all 3 schools during that week include resolving conflict peacefully, managing anger. This week, it also included presentations by the Hawthorne staff, mainly our guidance department, Hawthorne Police Department, outside speakers, some fun activities as part of our Spirit Weeks. Very often, each school will have some fun activities associated with that Week of Respect. There are academic activities that focus on respect, responsibility, cooperation, faith in yourself and others, and much more. This week, October 18th through 22nd, we celebrate School Violence Awareness Week, and those activities are geared toward the awareness and prevention of school violence and bullying. These activities also include assemblies to address the issues discussed throughout the week. So those are things that are happening in all 5 of our schools. Obviously, the activities or the assemblies are age appropriate depending on the level. And I already spoke about open house and bonfire, so once again, encourage you to attend the bonfire. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Trebona, who will share a portion of our testing report and some curricular updates.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I have glass on today. Hi everybody, I haven't been here in a while. You can see it on the screens, you can see it was shared with you. Like Mr. Spirito said, what you need to realize is normally October is our testing presentation. Due to the fact that testing has been altered for the past 2 school years, this is going to occur in 2 parts, and I'll explain that in the first couple of slides. So basically, if you remember the NJSLA testing, which is our former part that many of you may kind of think of, were waived in the 1920 and the 2021 school year. During that waiver, what happened was the DOE waived it, but said there still had to be some sort of federal requirement for testing later on. That was when they said that we had to do Start Strong testing. So those of you who have children in the district know that Start Strong testing occurred in September of 2021. That was for us to meet the federal requirement to maintain our funding and hit all regulations. The data for Start Strong, we don't really have it aggregated yet, so that's going to be part 2 of our presentation next month. But what was given in the 2021 school year was the access, which is our for English language learners to test their language proficiency, and the DLM, which is dynamic learning maps, which is the alternative assessment used for our severely special ed students. It was mandated, and it was mandated that it had to be in person. And if you remember last year, we still had a large majority of our students who were fully remote. These tests were not given a remote option, so we do have students who did not test due to the fact that their parents basically refused testing due to not wanting to bring them into the building. So I just felt that when I'm about to give you data, you need to know that context of the picture. We had 13 students who were part of our English language learners program that were rejected or did not take testing, and we only had 1 student from the DLM. What you need to realize is access for L's, basically this is measuring their proficiency of grasping the English language. What we're trying to do is get them to a score of 4.5 or higher. And traditionally, it looks to do that in their 4 years within the program. So this is giving a snapshot of all our students who did actually take the test in April of 2021. And you can see that we had some students who were 4.5 or higher. And we had some students who were between 4.0 and 4.4, which means that we'll start collecting additional data to get them ready to exit the program as we move on. I can proudly say that we had 7 students exit the program, even with the challenges of COVID between the 1920 and the 2021 school year, which is awesome. We normally range about 17 to 19 kids exiting the program in a typical year, so we should be very proud that we had 7 exit. And we have a lot of students that, in my feeling, will be exiting with this coming year's instruction and access testing. For the DLM, basically what we're looking at is how many of these students are meeting at or above target. Comparable to the idea of a 4 or a 5 on your NJLSA testing if you're looking at your kind of range of a rubric. You know, this is typical that in some grade levels we have more students achieving at different rates than we do in other grade levels. I think it's also very important to know that looking at what happened in 3rd grade, looking at 5th grade and what their schedules look like versus looking at the middle school and high school last year with the hybrid learning and what their schedules look like could correlate to some of this data being kind of all over the place. I think it's really important to note, and I think I kind of glossed over this, was that on all sport reports we did receive from the state, they put a blurb on it that said, scores may not accurately represent a student's ability due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is kind of this disclaimer that testing is kind of off and it's going to be off for a while. What I do want you to know is what we're going to look through now is our Start Strong testing data, and I'm going to give you a full report on that in the next meeting in November. So you're stuck with me 2 months in a row. That is kind of our short and abridged testing presentation. I'm going to move on to the next part. And this is kind of giving you context, and I felt that we felt that this was something that the board needed, that the community needed, and even some of our staff members and our school community needs to understand kind of the process of what goes on in my office and how that trickles down to the school levels. You all know Dr. Chopra. She has been integral in collating and correlating this information that we're putting together. Her and I kind of tag team through this for the past 2 months to put it in a nice, concise way for you, so she's going to just be chiming in when I forget to say something. So I just wanted to thank her for that. I'm going to miss our weekly Thursday meeting. Awesome. So what you need to know is there's a normal, what's called the curricular or standard revision process. So the state comes out with standards. They try to do them on 5-year cycles. Every 5 years, they do some kind of adjustment. Sometimes those adjustments are minor, sometimes those adjustments are major. Well, not knowing COVID was coming down the pike, in June of 2020, the state adopted new standards in all 7 of these areas. And most of them were complete overhauls, which means there were major changes done to the framework and the way that these were presented. What the state said was you have basically some of these should have been implemented in 2021, some in 2022 in September to match that 5-year cycle of revision. We've been working, and what you approve a lot on is all of my curricular work over the summer, is getting these and our documents up to speed. With that being said, due to COVID and stuff, we held off on some of them last summer, so it wasn't so much new coming back into it. And we'll be doing social studies, science, and comprehensive health and PE this coming summer, and we're doing a lot of that free work right now. What I think a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, what's sometimes out there in the public is that like New Jersey standards are coming from us. They're made on the state level, which I know many of you know, and the state is the one that gives that to us. So I think on the local level, all we're doing is we're taking that information and we're figuring out how we're going to make it work for Hawthorne. And we're differentiating it and making sure it's age appropriate for kids at our levels. The state takes teams of teachers, administrators, parents, they have public comments, and this is what people urge other people to do is get involved in this process of going down there on the state level to let people know whether or not, and you be part of those teams. Once it gets to us, it's already been approved by the state, and what we're doing is we're finding lessons, activities, ways that we can make this engaging and work for the kids at Hawthorne. So comprehensive health and physical education, you know, you think like, okay, this is easy, it's health, it's PE, but what gets embedded in here is a ton of mandates. With those mandates, we talk about fire prevention, we talk about abuse, we talk about fighting. I mean, there's just so many health, fitness, so many pieces that are just mandates that are part of code or part of 18A and have some colons and dashes that follow it. What's come lately is in the past 3 years, from 2019 to 2021, we've had some major mandates coming to that in the idea of consent, mental health, New Jersey safe haven, sexting, and sexual abuse and assault. What that's saying is the state of New Jersey is requiring us to put this into our teaching and learning age appropriately at wherever they say. So some of these are just mandated to 6-12, some of them are just middle school, some of them are the gamut of K through 12. When you look at these first one, consent, that's a pretty deeper topic. That's going to be 6 through 12. We're going to age appropriately talk about this to our middle schoolers and our high schoolers. Sexting, this is where we are trying to make aware of the ramifications and the effects that this can have. This is hitting our middle school population. This is where we really need them to know what's going on there. Safe haven, that's more of our high school population. We need to know or inform our students that there are options, there's laws, and there's things to protect them. This is how we do that. It's not that we stop our curriculum and we're like, time out, today we're going to have a safe haven lesson. No, it's part of our regular conversations that are constantly happening within health and or PE. The big one right now is mental health, and I think what the stigma out there is that we're teaching about the different disorders and we're teaching about like what it is and what it's not. What we're trying to do is we're trying to teach to diminish stigma and bring in the idea of saying that everybody can work through an understanding of what mental health is and how to enhance your own mental health and how to take care of yourself and take care of others. And I think this really highlights in the elementary level that, again, we're not teaching mental health as something being wrong. We're teaching self-help strategies for our students with stress relief, all the mindfulness stuff, little activities like write down, crumple up, throw out, get brainstorming. We're not teaching what is mental health, and mental health is a disease, and that's what I think people are confused where we're going. I know there's been a lot of talk about this sexual abuse and sexual awareness prevention on the pre-K to 3 level. So I wanted everybody here to know, what does that look like for us in Hawthorne? That's our teachers when we're doing communities and families, and we're teaching lessons about that and people and interactions. We're teaching them that nobody should touch you without your permission. Nobody should touch your body under your clothes except a doctor or a parent. If somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to tell somebody. Those are the extent of what these conversations look like, age appropriately at that level. We don't even get into titles. So you hear that there's a mandate that has this title in it, but if you walked into the classroom, you wouldn't know, let's say that that's what we're teaching. We're teaching good practice to our kids so that we can give them the education they need to basically advocate for themselves at a young age and know who the safe people to talk to are. This is where we get into some of the kind of topics that I just want to give clarity on. So those were mandates, and then we have standards. So within our comprehensive health and PE standards, there are a lot of issues around sexuality and sex education, which are now brought in at the lower grades. So what I felt the need to do was to share with you, what does this look like if you have a child K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 12. When pregnancy and parenting standards, so the way I have this presentation, and I'm going to go through some of it quickly, is I have what the standard is, or what they're saying the disciplinary core idea is on the top, and then I'm saying this is what it looks like if you're in a classroom in our district. If we're talking about parenting and pregnancy, we're talking about moms take care of babies, and mom bears take care of baby cubs, and I did therapy on purpose. Living things make more living things. These are the conversations, these are the books we're reading. We're not talking about like pregnancy and parenting in the sense that an adult would think about it. Again, we want people to know when we talk about social and sexual health that different families look different. Different people like to do things differently, that it's okay for girls to play with trucks, it's okay for boys to like the color pink. We have to get rid of stereotypes that men should be doctors and women should be nurses. Those are the conversations we're having. Again, people are thinking that we're walking in and we're talking about like social and sexual health with some of these like terms and stigmas that are out there, and not. We're trying to teach kids that it's okay to have your own identity, okay to be what you want. We read stories. One of the stories is called Sparkle Boy. And a lot of people look when you hear that title, but it's about the youngest of 6 siblings. It's a boy, he has 6 older sisters. All they do is play dress up, put makeup. So what does he do when he's at home? He thinks you're supposed to play dress up and put makeup. And we say that that's okay, because when he comes to school, he's not wearing his dress up and his makeup, but he says, I played dress up this weekend. Nobody should look at that any differently, and that's all we're trying to show the kids when we're having these conversations. On the 3 to 5 letter level, we get a little more, again, this is scaffold or spiral, and it's snowballing into higher, deeper topics. We're looking at the idea that families are different. Some people have 2 moms, 2 dads, some people have grandparents living with them, some people only have 1 mom. There's a specific piece about gender identity on the 3 to 5 level, and one of the activities that we are bringing in Hawthorne is called the snow person lesson. And we just talk about it one day, and we talk about the teacher, I brought it with me, but the teacher puts up a snow person, and they refer to it as a snow person. Some people say, wait, isn't that a snowman? Well, we keep calling it a snow person, and everybody has to decorate their snow person. and they give it an identity. And, some of them have pink hats, some of them have pink bows. And then we talk and we say, when you look at these snow people, they may not have a gender, or the gender that you think they are may not be what it appears to be. And that's what we're trying to show them, that it's a gender person, it's a person in the outside and the inside. And we don't even go as deep as saying the outside and the inside, but we say like appearance doesn't always match assumption. That's the underlying root of what that is. And that we can call it a snowman, but what if I draw a snow woman? Or what if I just call it a snow person because it's just 3 pieces of snow with a hat? That's what we're trying to teach our 3rd to 5th graders. We also talk about, that we have the piece in 4th and 5th grade about the physical changes. We separate boys and girls in one age, we bring them back together in another. This is standard, this is what's been going on for a while. When we get to 6-8, again, we get a little deeper, but the pregnancy and the parenting standards, they've been there. This is the age, especially in today's day and age, that we need to educate them. And that's the key word. We're giving facts, we're not giving opinions, we're not giving our own morals, our own beliefs. We're saying, here are our facts, here's what's out there, this is what you should need to know. What we don't realize, what some people don't realize is they know all of this from TikTok from 4th grade, so they're telling us half the time. Social and sexual health here, there's different ideas about differentiating between basically gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. And I think this would be one of the lessons that what we're doing is we have a fictitious kind of like memoir. And what they're doing in a controlled environment in their health class, I believe it's in 8th grade, is they're reading kind of like it's a journal entry from a student. And John's saying all this, and you guys all have access to this if you click it in the board folder, and this will be posted online. But it brings the thought process of a middle school student trying to find his own identity and not knowing where he fits within the larger context. And what it's doing is it's giving snippets at a time. It's not giving any defining characteristics, but it's prompting discussion. Things like, should John feel embarrassed about not wanting to go to the dance because he doesn't have a date? Or should he feel embarrassed because he wants to bring somebody that everybody doesn't think is the right person he should bring? So it's just bringing things that could be going through the minds of our own students without sitting here, we're not having a lesson saying what these terms mean. We introduce it as identity as a larger context. Your identity is your race, your ethnicity, your height, the color of clothes you wear, what music you listen to, all those things, plus there's that little piece of gender identity. And what we try to separate is the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. Now, gender identity is an identity. It's who you identify as, whereas sexual orientation is your biological basis. And that's the extent of it at the middle school level.
If I may just jump in here for a moment to speak to the fact that the core of this work is that with knowledge of these terminologies comes an awareness that leads to empathy. It kind of diminishes the stigma, diminishes the biases that kind of come with it. So the end goal of a lot of this work is to arrive at empathy and understanding.
That we all are just inclusive when you use that term. Again, this one, again, I believe is an area that comes up, you go to about the 4th bullet on the top. There's some controversy about it in the 6th through 8 world. I see the head shaking now. What this has been in the standards talking about the different types of sexual activity, and basically for it, it's really just an awareness of the hazards and the consequences and the emotional piece of all 3 types of these. It's not differentiating between 3 types. It's not advocating for one over the other. It's just giving them an exposure that with any type of sexual activity comes risks, comes emotional risks, comes like how you have to self-identify with things. Again, this is not embedded in a lesson where that's what you're going to see on the lesson plan that day, where the kids are going to know, today we're talking about bullet 4. It just naturally comes into some of our discussions when we're talking about reproductive and sexual sex ed education. That piece that I just talked about with the sexual education is the only part that parents can opt out of in terms of standards and curriculum. There is a lot of misinformation. People think they can opt out of mandates. No, the only thing that can be opt out of is those ideas of sex education That happens a lot in the 4th and 5th grade when we do our normal puberty talks. That is just a letter to the principal from the parents. We pull the kids, they have an alternate activity. It's non-stigmatizing, it's not anything, and they just move, we move on. Other mandates that I'm going to talk about now, there is no opt-out option. So sometimes we can have questions to principals where the parents are like, well, I don't want them doing X. That's not an option because that's part of our approved curriculum and instruction. So that was health and PE. Now we go to the broader terms of the 4 other main mandates. I did put this up here for kind of like a historical perspective that a lot of these mandates have been around for a while. The Holocaust mandate came into New Jersey Code in 1994, Amistad in 2002, LGBTQ and persons with disabilities was the one that came in 2020, and this year is the first with diversity and inclusion. So there's a goal of every mandate, and there's what it's going to look like in our building. So when we talk about like Holocaust, and we're talking about Holocaust education, our goal is to let kids know that people are differences, the differences make us special, we're enhanced and strengthened by our differences, and that it's important to work and learn together as a community. And if you think about a lot of our social studies curriculum, K-5, it's that community-based instruction. 6-12 is when you get into the historical perspective of it. That's what Kaneko works on with their teachers. Like, how can we make this meaningful work to talk not only about the Holocaust, but to understand that Holocaust is a general umbrella term that means more than just what happened in Nazi Germany. And that's what we're trying to get our students to realize and understand.
And a large part of the 612 work is to also understand the predictors that lead to genocide. So the Anti-Defamation League has a pyramid of hate exercise that invites students to consider how things escalate to the point of genocide. And we start to consider things that we can do at the smaller scale to prevent from getting there.
Amistad, again, this has been to celebrate those contributions of African American history in our social studies curriculum, as well as other subject areas in the arts, music, and literacy. So you can see a lot of this is done in the elementary level through our read-alouds, through our mini units, when we look at biographies in 3rd and 4th grade, when we look at different months of celebration. I know that we did stuff with Hispanic Heritage Month, and we had Black History Month. As we get older into grade 5, we start talking about what does it look like through our segregated United States, look at the slave trade. They're learning the history of the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln. As we go into 6-12, again, we're still examining things through the perspective of another lens with African American history. We try to bring in what is the meaning behind the jazz or the blues movement, if we're looking at that music. Because yes, it was in an era and it was in a population, but what did that mean? Why is blues from this era, from this population? What is the historical context behind it?
I think there's value to point out that the mandate derives its name from a really cool pivotal moment in history.
That's why she's here.
And it's a moment that was the watershed moment for a lot of the abolitionist movement, right? So we start to think about how that was a revolution that began on a slave ship that inherently shouldn't have been a slave ship because transatlantic slavery had been outlawed at that point, but it was still going on. And one of the most wonderful things that came out of the Amistad case was that those indentured slaves were not found guilty for their revolt, for overthrowing the people on the ship that were bringing them over. And this was really a pivotal moment. I think that understanding the history behind the Amistad really speaks to the value of the mandate, because we're acknowledging the vestiges of slavery, but also understanding the contributions of Black Americans. They didn't stand on the sidelines. They fought for their own rights along with the rights of others. And oftentimes we forget that Black folks fought in the American Revolution. They were a large part of the Civil War. So it's important to kind of shed light on that, and we do that across the board.
This is one of the mandates that came in 2020, and again, it was enacted in the middle of COVID, so I feel like there was a lot of, well, right now we're worrying about COVID, so we're going to talk about this later, but LGBTQ and the persons with disability, first off, I really want to emphasize this is a 6 through 12 mandate, meaning that this is only occurring on the 6 through 12 level. Additionally, this mandate is similar to homicide in the sense that it is where we are looking and celebrating contributions of people within these, if you want to say, categories. So we're looking at how do contributions from the LGBTQ persons shape American history. Let's look at things like that. If we're used to talking about the women's rights movement and Black history movement, all we're saying now is how did we get to areas where we are? How did we get to marriage equality? How did we get to work equality? Areas like this. In 9 through 12, we go a little deeper, but again, we do it through a lens of showing that the contributions of these people were either highlighted or diminished based on the time in history. And I'm going to let you talk about the code breakers.
Sure. So one thing that I actually didn't know too much about until recently was Alan Turing. Alan Turing was a pivotal figure in breaking the codes of the Nazis during World War II. And when we celebrate the work of mathematicians and scientists, we can talk about Alan Turing, and we can talk about Enigma code breaking and how important that was. And the unfortunate reality was, during his time, he was persecuted for being a gay man. And since then, strides have been made. Since then, the Queen of England has issued a public apology on this, right? So there's been strides made in that field. And again, when we talk about Alan Turing, we don't center his sexuality. We focus primarily on his contributions. And there's a really neat Enigma code-breaking activity that I believe the FBI has put up on their website for kids to toy around with and practice breaking the Enigma code. But it's a really neat way to get kids excited and engaged with STEM stuff.
And then our most recent mandate is our diversity and inclusive mandate, which is K through 12. And I think it's really important to understand what this law requires. It requires school districts to include instruction on diversity and inclusion, and the bullets are key. It says highlight and promote diversity, including economic diversity, equity, inclusion, tolerance, and belonging in connection with gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, disabilities, and religious tolerance. Basically, that right there says we need to be accepting of whoever is sitting next to us. And the key here, what we try to say is, we don't know who's sitting next to us, nor should we know who's sitting next to us. So what we're trying to teach our students is just be nice and inclusive of everybody, and it doesn't matter which identity this person to your right or left has. It goes further to talk about examining the impact of unconscious bias and economic disparities have both on the individual level and the society level. When we talk about this, we talk about this increasingly in a more sophisticated manner, that we're not talking in K-5 about unconscious bias. They don't even know what the word unconscious means. They can't even pronounce unconscious. So we're not doing that there. But we're still just talking about this community feel, this welcoming, safe space that we're trying to make Hawthorne, and that's the lens we're doing it to. We're saying we are a community, we are a classroom, we are a school, whether we're Roosevelt or Washington or Lincoln, that we want it to be a safe place for anybody who walks through that door, including yourself. And however you are, in whatever boxes you check, you need to be inclusive and aware of that and feel comfortable, just like the person sitting next to you. Point blank, I think it's very important to say, critical race theory is not being taught. It's further to note, the terms critical race theory are nowhere mentioned in any New Jersey curricular mandate, New Jersey standard, or anything on the level of K-12 education. It is a sophisticated framework used for postgraduate work that I can honestly stand here and say, I did not know, I was born in 1979, I did not know this term until 2013. Okay, it is not something that, and I learned that when I started working on my PhD, and it was a framework to look at through a lens. So I think it's very important to note that this is not what is being taught, this is not what is being brought around racism. We're teaching inclusion and diversity, not racism and prejudice, which I think is important. But I will say, politically or conscious, that our curriculum does have to identify or address areas of racism and prejudice. So if we are talking about unconscious bias, we're talking about challenging the normal. Okay, so on the elementary level, what we're doing is we're taking our families and we're doing family bulletin boards. So each child has to draw their family and they have to be proud of their family and they have to put it up. The unconscious bias is that you should have a mom, a dad, a sister, a dog, and a white picket fence. That's not reality anymore. So what we do is when we showcase what our families are, we're trying to celebrate and honor whatever that family is. Whether you have grandma and grandpa living with you or taking care of you, or whether you only have a dad or maybe you have two dads. We're not highlighting that. We're just saying that whatever family that you put up on that board should be celebrated and counted just as important as anybody else's. That's unconscious bias at the K-5 level. When we're doing it later on in life, we're talking about things of history, talking about the idea of like literacy tests and the voting rights that were back there. Like to get voting rights, you gotta be able to pass a literacy test. That's an unconscious bias. Kids don't understand what that means. We're not rectifying, we're not telling them what their beliefs are, we're making them aware of what that turns off. We're looking at legislative precedents in terms of racism and prejudice. We're looking at the Jim Crow laws. We're looking at Brown and the Board of Education. We have to teach these parts of our history. We're evaluating historical and current events. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, that's all, everybody, that's what we've been doing forever. We look at what the KKK is, what it represents. Look at the Charlottesville riots, that's a more current event. Bring things in the time, compare them to show how history repeats itself, to show how history, the same types of fighting and internal angst is coming against each other. And we're looking at bystanders, hate crimes, genocides. This is what our population is used to. They hear about hate crimes all the time. So why not educate them? What is that? What does it mean? When did laws come into effect over that? So what does this look like in our classrooms? Like I said, again, K-5, we're looking at 4 core ideas for diversity and inclusion. We're looking at family can mean something different to different people. It is important to treat myself and others with respect, recognize how our actions affect others both positively and negatively, and celebrate what makes us unique. That's our diversity and inclusion mandate in the K-5 idea. 612, we go a little deeper. We talk about the power of words and the power of actions. What you say and what you do shapes kind of the society and where you are. I think it's important to note that I started this mandate off by saying it's really important that we're not going to know who's sitting next to us. We're not going to know what their identities are and what they identify as. And this is a perfect picture of why. We have a diverse student population, which is shifting. We have a shifting economically disadvantaged population. We have a disproportionately high special ed population. 23% is very high for the size of our district for a special ed population. We have a 27% ELL population. That's huge in a district our size. Being that that's who we are, then we need to make sure that we are making everybody feel welcome and teaching our kids that whoever's sitting next to you in life needs to feel the same way you feel. They should be proud of who they are, and that they should be treating everybody with respect. And kind of to sum this up, what we've been doing a lot with our kids is talking about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And the idea of mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors is the idea of we want kids to be able to see themselves in what we teach. We want them to be able to look through and see what others are experiencing or others are like. And we want them to go a step further and be able to say that I can now kind of turn and look or go through that sliding glass door to figure out what does it mean to be on that other end. You know, it's not always what it appears to be.
I think it's important to just kind of bring this all to a point where we think about how literature has the power to transport us into different spaces. And when it does that, we often come out on the other end understanding folks a little bit better than when we started, particularly when that literature does not reflect only our reality, only our narrative. So the more we provide avenues for students and folks to understand different experiences, different identities, the more we can mitigate that conflict before it comes to a head.
That's it.
Jump real quick. I don't know if the board has any questions. But before you do, I just want to thank Dr. Tribona and Dr. Chopra for putting this together. I know it was a lot of time spent putting this together, but I appreciate it. I think it's very important to share this information, not only with the board, but with our community. So thank you for the work that went into it. But I'll turn it back over to the board.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments?
This will be available on the website.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna post it, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break it down into my testing that I normally, and I will put this under my curriculum page. So,
So we'll make it available.
Tamara will help me tomorrow.
Yeah, I just have one comment. I'm not ashamed to say I don't agree with all this, but that's okay. It's the world we live in. I've done my homework on critical race theory, realizing that goes all the way back to Marxism. And I think one thing you need to change is don't say you're not teaching critical race theory. Equality, diversity, prejudice, inclusion, it's all part of the framework. We all know that. So moving forward, just be careful not to insult people's intelligence. You were very honest tonight, and I appreciate that. I think you gotta take that one more step. That's just one of 9, it's my opinion. But that's it.
Anybody else on this?
Yes,
Dr. Morrow?
I'd like to thank you for the thorough presentation and educating our community, for those who may be online watching, as well as educating us as board members. I wish that for those who were present at the last board meeting, that they would have been present here today to listen to the message that was shared. Hopefully they're watching, but if anything, they can access it online for that. And I'm not going to get into the merits of debating what critical race theory is or it isn't. However, I will counter that critical race theory is being inappropriately applied to any conversation regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are specific tenets to critical race theory, and so I think when we discuss about what we're teaching, we are not teaching the tenets of critical race theory. Critical race theory seeks to address inequities, historical inequities based on racism and prejudice. And so yes, Mr. Turco, to your point, that if we're talking about race and racism, to an extent, we are talking about how that has influenced and affected.
Absolutely.
That would be critical race theory.
Correct.
But to say that we are teaching critical race theory in the aspect of teaching specific tenets and what is used, we are not teaching that because it is not appropriate to teach the K-12 students. So if the essence of us to teach and to educate, to ensure that we correct the wrongs of the past and the present regarding racism and inequity, that is not critical race theory. Thank you.
I frankly don't agree, but that's okay.
I would like to thank you both and anyone else who was involved in making this presentation, putting together this research, and Hawthorneizing all of the different mandates. This was not something that you were asked to do. This was something you chose to do to clarify for the public. I like Dr. Morrell, am sad that more people were not here to see this, which is why I asked would this be shareable. I will be sharing it with anyone who asks me any of these questions. But again, I think it's important for the board and the public to know you weren't told to make this. You guys went above and beyond, and for that I'm very grateful.
Just to let you know, I get a lot of calls in my office, so the principals call me, and I welcome parents to call me because to have that conversation on the phone to explain certain things. And yes, we made this presentation, but the real thanks goes to the teachers in our districts who are really, this is what they're doing. So I'm standing here and I can make it look all pretty and click, but this is actually what's happening. So they are the ones who should be celebrated in this because they're bringing it to fruition.
Anybody else?
Echoing the same comments from Dr. Morrell, Abby, Lou, I just think it's, I will speak for myself, I'm very appreciative of you guys doing this. I know it's been a hot topic on social media and what have you, and throughout the district, just parents being inquisitive and wanting to be informed about it, and I am too saddened that they weren't here the last 2 times. because I really think that you guys drove it home and just kind of gave us a better understanding as a whole and how we are applying it, right? Because I think that's a big debate right now too, is people they're not seeing how we apply it within our own district. So I appreciate that. I think it's really important, and I really hope that any of the parents at home who have any question have the ability to see this as soon as possible and hopefully get themselves educated.
So, like echoing everybody's sentiments, thank you very much for coming out here and presenting on it. We know it can be a landmine of a topic nowadays, especially when you see what's happening, across the country with different Board of Education meetings. Well, this is the forum for it or not, not for me to say, but it is happening. So appreciate you taking it on. Also, thank you to Mr. Sprita, because it doesn't happen without his leadership and putting ourselves out there. I do have a question.
Sure.
How does so the implementation is up to us, right? The state mandates it, we implement it. How does the state oversee? How does the state approve or disapprove of our implementation of what they deem fit?
So a lot of that comes through our QSAC monitoring. So there is a whole, if I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, 16 indicators under curriculum and instruction, where the first 7 are through all the different areas of standards. Where they go through that, not only do they look at what our curricular says, they look at lesson plans, they look at assessments that we give across all scope and sequence, grade level and ability level. And that's what's so important about really making sure that what we're doing is what we're say we're doing, because when the state comes in, that's the area that they're coming to look at.
And it's fair to say that it is a statement of fact that we don't have an option as to these mandates.
Correct.
Implementation is up to us, but we're mandated to teach what the state deems that needs to be taught.
Correct, so the mandates portion that we talked about, those, and the 4 last ones, those are mandated. We are required by law to implement that into our instruction. It's that we have the leeway to how do we meet that mandate and what does our instruction look like. So not everybody has to do the same lesson and do it the same way. So that's where we have our kind of autonomy.
And the consequences of not teaching according to the mandate are? You lose points and you become a priority school or a school in need in the QSAC monitoring. And that has other effects to it. So we are not in that area. Since I've been here, prior to me, Darlene had us in a good place. We had a waiver when I first came in. We just got another waiver in COVID because we had done good in the past time. So we should be good, but basically what happens is that impacts your QSAC score, which then could put you on basic internal action plans, state monitoring. I don't know, nowadays they used to call it CAPS in schools, then they called it RAC schools. I mean, they're all different terms, but basically it's the state comes in and oversees you if you're not doing basically what they dictate. Thank you. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cerrito. Moving on with the agenda, curriculum instruction. Ms. Goff, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Curriculum Instruction recommends the following resolutions. CI1 on page 3, CI2 through CI11 on page 4, CI12 through CI14 on page 5, and CI60 through 62 on page 15 of the agenda. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second. Second by Mr. Taro. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morell?
Yes to everything, no to CI12.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Clavino?
Yes. Ms. Goff, personnel again, please.
Thank you. The following resolutions are pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools. P15 through P19 on page 5, P20 through P34 on page 6, P35 through P41 on page 7, P42 through P45 on page 8, and P63 through P67 on page 15 of the addendum. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Turco, any discussion?
I would like to say something, Mr. President.
Yes.
I would just like to note that at this time in the year, having this many personnel changes is highly unusual, and that it is indicative of the tremendously turbulent time that educators are going through, and I would like to again praise all of our educators and administrators who are going above and beyond, covering for teachers who have resigned, doing things outside of their job descriptions. Dr. Chopra has been in a classroom, which is not exactly what we hired her to do, but it is a testament to those who are here, that they are willing. And this is, though Hawthorne is obviously my favorite example, this is happening nationwide. There is a shortage of personnel, but I would like to sincerely thank everyone here for going above and beyond and making sure that our students' needs are met despite having a large number of holes to fill.
Anybody else?
I do have a question of clarification
Tomorrow.
for P19, the academic coordinator position. So I understand that this position is paid for with ESSER funds. Are we looking to find a replacement? Are these responsibilities in transitions, or is the money just going to be saved and utilized for next school year?
We would like to find a bid.
We are advertising for a replacement for that short-term period. If it does not, that work will be transitioned to both Mrs. Dever, Mr. Salisbury, Kanika, and Megan to work through our NJTSS kind of program during the couple of months when this action plan is out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Deleuze?
Abstain on P33, yes to everything else.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Stay on P39, yes, to everything else.
Ms. Aaron's
Yes.
Mr. Clavino?
Yes. Mr. Turco, Finance and Administration, please.
Thank you, sir. First, I'd like to recognize two donations. One from the Hawthorne Rotary Club for $924 for dictionaries for our third grade students. And also a donation from Marianne Alcesser from Compass Realty in Wyckoff at a value of $3,000 for, in addition to the curriculum, for foundations and personal finance. So I'd like to thank both organizations on our behalf. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools Committee on Finance Administration, recommend the following resolutions. F46 on page 9 through A54 on page 10. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Deleuze, any discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Deleuze?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron's
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Clavino?
Yes. Claims, I had the opportunity of reviewing the bills. It is recommended that the board approve the bill list for the month of October 2021. We have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Totaro, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Deleuze?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
With reservations with any bill relevant to PCTI and Northern Regional Commissions. Yes on everything else.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron's
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Clavino?
Yes. Mr. Totaro, buildings and grounds, please.
Thanks. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, Committee on Buildings and Grounds recommends the following resolutions. BG 56 on page 10 through BG 57 on page 11. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second. Second by Mr. Carr. Any discussion?
I have a question. Mr. Sprito, when we allow an outside facility or association to use our building, do they have to implement any standardized COVID protocols? Because they usually are our children who are attending, and I just would need to see them be like a super spreader event in which,
They have to adhere to any protocols that we have in school.
Okay.
We let them know that. And to your point, we have limited who's using them. And we have had some adult groups ask to use them, and I deny those.
Sure.
We're trying to limit it to the students who's there in the buildings anyway. It's our kids. So that's what we've tried to limit these outside groups to.
I agree.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Mr. Raisher?
Yes.
Mr. Satara?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron's
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Cordero?
Yes. Mr. Satara, policy, please.
Sure. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Policy recommends the following resolutions. PO 58 through PO 59 on page 12. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second?
Second by Ms. Aaron's. Any discussion?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
I just wanted a clarification regarding 1648.13, which is the school employee vaccination requirements, which references 1648.11, specifically Appendix A. I had a question. What is the process if in the event Monday comes around and the teacher does not have the result? What is the district process for that?
So those staff members will be addressed by myself or a member of our administrative team. The reason we did it on Friday was that we'd have the results over the weekend. If people are not vaccinated, they'll be, or did not provide, if they're not coming to our test site or provide documentation, we will communicate with them. They will not be permitted to return to school, and we'll address that staff member as necessary.
Okay, so Monday comes, I didn't get my results back because I didn't go through the meta phase that the district is facilitating. I went somewhere else. Unfortunately, I didn't get it back on time, and therefore I won't be able to teach on Monday.
Well, hopefully that won't be the case, but we'll address it with each staff member individually, because obviously, if they come to us, we'll have the results. If they don't, then it's going to have to be on a case-by-case basis. I mean, if they say I just didn't go, well, that's a different story than saying I went, I just didn't get my results yet, I should have it tomorrow morning. I think, I want to be a little flexible with that, because I think it's going to depend on, it's brand new, so we're going to have to work our way through some of these challenges.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I just want to note, I was appreciative in reading the meal charges outstanding food service bill, which is P 8550. I want to take a specific note for that because there have been instances across the country of district boards of education really being not family, I don't know, it's a positive, I don't know how to put it, towards families that are in arrears for lunch things. And I like the fact that our policy is very supportive and friendly and adaptive. And I just wanted to acknowledge the district and working on that policy. I just wanted to say that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Roll call.
Mr. Satara?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron's
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Raisher?
Yes.
Mr. Cordero?
Yes. So that concludes the action items portion of the agenda. We're going to move on to committee and liaison reports. Mr. Carr, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. President. There have been a number of bills that were signed into law by the governor. First being S2826A4594,
establishes limited teacher certification pilot. This directs the New Jersey Department of Education to establish a 5-year pilot program for the issuance of limited certificates of eligibility with advanced standing and limited certificates of eligibility. The limited CEAS and limited CE will be available to candidates who may not meet one of the general requirements for a CEAS or CE and are seeking employment in schools, such as the minimum GPA requirement or the requirement to achieve a passing score on a subject matter test. Those who hold limited CES or limited CE only would be eligible for employment at school districts approved by NJ and DOE. Such districts must demonstrate sufficient capability to support their teachers. The district also must demonstrate a demographic disparity between districts or schools' student population and teaching staff, or a shortage of bilingual education teachers, or a critical need to fill teacher vacancies or hardship caused by teacher vacancies, also showing that hiring a teacher with limited certification would fill the need. Following the receipt of 2 effective or highly effective evaluations within a 3-year period, the teacher would be eligible for a standard instructional certificate. Bill number S225 and A679, new concussion protocols. Under student athletes who have sustained a concussion are prohibited from returning to competition until they have returned to regular school activities and are symptom-free. Return to student athlete or cheerleader would be in accordance with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's graduated 6-step return to play progression recommendations. This builds upon existing laws stipulating that a student athlete must be evaluated by and receive written clearance from a physician or a healthcare provider trained in the evaluation and management of concussions in order to return to competition or practice. Bill number A970 and S2259, student depression screenings, establishes the mental health screening in schools grant program in the New Jersey Department of Education. School districts will be able to apply for funding and resources to implement annual depression screening programs to identify students in grades 7 through 12 who are at risk of depression. The bill places a variety of conditions on any school districts receiving a grant of the program, including the school district shall use research-based screening tool. Screening shall be conducted in a manner that permits real-time evaluation of results. The school district shall ensure that the screening will be able to accommodate bilingual education students, students with disabilities, and students with low reading proficiency. Assurances that student privacy will be protected and that parental consent be obtained prior to administering a screening on a student. This bill appropriates $1 million to fund the grant program. The law will enter effectively in the 22-23 school year. Earlier versions of this legislation would require all school boards to ensure that every student in grades 7 through 12 receive an annual screening for depression. However, the bill was amended just before receiving final legislative approval to create this grant program instead of establishing a new mandate. STEM opportunities for young women and minorities, bill number A1625S2854, aims to increase representation of young women and minorities in science, technology, engineering, and math. As enacted, the measure directs the NJDOE in consultation with the Federal Office of the Secretary of Higher Education and the Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology to develop and administer an outreach program to encourage young women and minorities to pursue post-secondary degrees and careers in STEM fields. In developing and administering the outreach program, the NJDOE is to provide elementary and secondary school students, especially young women and minorities, with opportunities to increase their exposure to the STEM fields. The NJDOE will also establish a STEM mentoring program and create programs to increase the recruitment and retention of underrepresented faculty in STEM subject areas. And bill number A5882, S3943, this requires the state to provide a 10-cent per meal supplement to the existing federal reimbursement to operators of federal summer food service programs and the seamless summer option. The summer food service program administered by the State Department of Agriculture provides free nutritious meals and snacks to help children in low-income areas get the nutrition they need to learn, play, and grow throughout the summer months when they are out of school. The summer option program combines features of the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, and summer food service program. This option reduces paperwork and administrative burden, making it easier for schools to feed children from low-income areas during the traditional summer vacation periods. This law goes into effect on June 1st, 2022. Bill A5883 and S3994 requires the state to provide a 10-cent per breakfast supplement to the existing federal reimbursement to a school district with schools that participate in the federal school breakfast program by providing breakfast after the bell. In 2018, Governor Murphy signed legislation that requires a public school in which 70% or more of its students are eligible for free or reduced price meals under the National School Lunch Program and the Federal School Breakfast Program to establish a breakfast after the bell program. This law also takes effect in the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year And finally, A5884, S3945 establishes a state office of the Food Insecurity Advocate to improve access to food relief programs, develop new policy initiatives to combat hunger, and serve as an advocate for food insecure residents. Mr. President, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Passaic County School Board Associations, they had their first meeting of the school year yesterday. My secretary did not allow me to attend. Not sure if anybody else had the opportunity. I will share the upcoming meetings, and as time does allow, definitely would encourage us to join those meetings once again. Ms. Goff, JSBA, please, and curriculum and instruction.
Sure thing, Mr. President. I would just like to remind my fellow board members that next week is the virtual workshop for NJSBA. It will be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All presenters are virtual, so hopefully you're able to hop on for some of it. Our very own, I'm going to say his name wrong, Dr. Corona, Fidel Day. Every time. Fidel Day, he is one of the prominent speakers at the event, so we could show our support by attending that session and any other sessions. There's a full menu of options on their website. As far as curriculum and instruction, we met last Tuesday, October 13th, from 5:30 to 6:30. The first order of business was for Dr. Tribona to preview these presentations with us, further elongating her preparation. She went through it all with us in the committee, which we're very grateful for. So I'm not going to go over those notes. She also referenced the personal financial literacy curriculum donation from the real estate agent Wyckoff. I am personally familiar with Ramsey Education. I received the emails from the company, and this is a really great asset. Everything is tailored in a TED Talk style, and there is no cap on the number of students that can participate. The first year is completely paid for as per the donation. Should we choose to use it for year 2, that would be $3,000, and that would encompass everyone in the district. We also got an update on the Multisensory reading program. Orton Gillingham, 4 teachers are currently using what they were taught, and they're out in the district doing it. One additional 5th teacher is out on maternity leave. From the start of the year to October 1, all K-3 students were given the DIBELS or the OPSS, which are universal screeners. They are now meeting with students. There are 104 students that were identified in K-3 as in need of assistance. They will run this first round for 16 weeks. We also received an update on the ESSER 3 funds, which Mr. Sprito touched base briefly on in the beginning of the meeting. We're currently working on the application, which is due in November. Things that are going into that will be the crisis counselors for Pittsburgh and mental health, multisensory reading, increased BSI, academic coordinator at Lincoln, part-time visual arts and social studies teachers, additional non-instructional aides, replacement of unit ventilators based on need and age. And then the last thing we discussed were parent workshops, a series that Dr. Tribona and Ms. Weigert, our Director of Guidance, have put together. They've coordinated all outside presenters, the first of which is in November, and it will be navigating parenting. And then post-quarantine, it's going to be more of an open forum where they will get topics for further workshops. December will be mindful practices and self-care. January will be gatekeeper training to assist with suicide prevention. February will be determined as per the needs identified in the open forum. And March will also be TBD. That is all I have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goff. Mr. Blues, have CPAC and PTO, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight must be Give Back Night because there was 3 of them that we missed. I'm mentioning in the high school was Tasty Pizza, Washington School was Chipotle and Paramus, and the Golfville Creamery was Give Back Night for the high school. The reason why I mention them is because we have to keep an eye out for things because a lot of times things happen in between meetings. So just pay attention to some of the Facebook pages if you could. They always post different fundraising ideas and give back nights. Washington PTO right now is also doing a pizza kit fundraiser. I think there's 1 week left. $6 for every kit that's sold goes to the PTO. It's a really great idea. You can order online. Just go to their PTO Facebook page. The kit gets delivered directly to your house, so there's no running around and trying to pick things up. It goes directly to your house, and you or your kids can make pizza at home. Moving over to LMS, PTO is selling raffle tickets for a beautiful blue Tundra Wheeling Yeti cooler. So I guess it's a cooler on wheels. It's $20 per ticket. I'm not making this up. I'm reading what they posted. But it's again, it's a fundraiser. Check out their Facebook page. $20 a ticket. You can win a nice big cooler that you can pull around. And then CPAC will continue to pull save your pull tabs, drop them off at any of the schools. And that's again for the Ronald McDonald House pull tab fundraiser. And then last but not least, I know Angela already mentioned it in her report, but the marching band pasta dinner is the October 28th. You can get tickets in advance. I think this week is the last week you can buy them, and hopefully there'll be some at the door if you decide to try the night of, again, October 28th, the marching band pasta dinner. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blues. I know the high school PTO is selling their pie sale going on too.
What's that?
The high school PTO has their pie sale going on.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you for pointing that out.
Demarest Farms, I think is where they're from.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blues. I know there's a lot to keep track of. Mr. Lutero, Buildings and Grounds, Council Liaison and Policy, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On October 12th, the Building and Grounds Committee met, and we had several items we discussed. Throughout the district, there are various HVAC units that have reached their end of use. We have engaged a certified vendor to survey each unit through PSE&G, and we may only be required to pay as little as 20%. We will get additional pricing through qualified vendors for comparison. As previously mentioned in last month's meeting, we have maintained these units, but repairs are costly, with parts being unobtainable. Many of these units are over 20, 30 years old. As we obtain more information, we provide it to everyone accordingly. Throughout the district, referendum update, although we continue to make progress with a lot of the projects, we are awaiting finishing touches, as well as addressing the punch list, which is being created by the construction managers. We're optimistic this will be completed soon. And then just have an update here regarding the window installation. As far as high school, things are moving right along. We've got through several rooms last week, and at Jefferson, we have started the abatement this afternoon actually, and we will be beginning the install of the windows starting, I believe, tomorrow in classroom 113 and ongoing from there the rest of the week. Univent replacements. The univents throughout our district, as Abby may have mentioned, are under C&I are required to be replaced based on the need and age. We await the ESSER 3 application approval to proceed, which allows funds to be applied towards air quality improvements. And two more items under B&G. HHS gym floor repairs. During the roof replacement, there were leaks in the gymnasium causing damage to about 440 square feet of flooring, which is required to be replaced. We have received a proposal to repair, sand, and refinish the entire floor caused by the damage, which is being charged back to the contractor who caused it. And lastly, the high school bleacher repairs. There are various repairs and maintenance required to the bleachers. This work will be scheduled within 4 to 6 weeks and will be funded through our maintenance reserve, hopefully before the basketball season. On to my council liaison report. As per my review of the council meeting from October 6th, the following was shared by Mayor Goldberg in his administrative report. Mayor wanted to thank everyone for Hawthorne Day and what was another great success. He also spoke about the great success of the first Hispanic Heritage Day for Hispanic Heritage Month. And thanks to Councilman Sierra for heading that up. Other than that, this concludes my report on my council liaison report. And lastly, regarding policy, pursuant to my review of the most recent Strauss estimator update, the following policy alerts have been noted and mandated. P1648.13, school employee vaccination requirements. I'll read this one in full. I think it's important. On August 23rd, 2021, Governor Murphy signed Executive 253 requiring all public districts, charter schools, parochial schools, and private schools employees to be fully vaccinated or submit COVID-19 testing at one or two times per week. Executive Order 253 shall be effective October 18, 2021. Strauss Esme has developed Policy Code 1648.13 to address the vaccination testing requirements of the Executive Order 253. School districts were recently surveyed regarding their preference for their employees to be tested by state contractors or to be reimbursed by the state for the expense of testing of the district's employees provided by other means. Policy Guide 1648.13 satisfies the vaccination testing policy requirements in the Executive Order 253. However, the Policy Guide 1648.13 must be supplemented by protocols to be developed by school districts that should be included in Appendix A of Policy Guide 1648.11. The Road Forward COVID-19 Health and Safety that was provided to school districts in Policy Alert 224 in August 2021. These protocols should include, but not limited to, the vaccination verification process, testing intervals, the testing confirmation process, and the protocols the district needs to include in the Appendix A of Policy Guide 1648.11. Policy Guide 1648.11 appendices can be found on the Strauss Esme's website under the Policy Alerts tab, Download Alert section. The state may provide additional guidance on vaccination testing requirements of Executive Order 253. The Strauss Esme will revise Policy Guide 1648.13 if needed. Our office did not want to wait for any additional guidance to provide Policy Guide 141648 to districts to begin the planning process for an October 18 implementation date. Other than that, we also implemented P2425, which is the Emergency Virtual or Remote Instruction Program. P2425 is mandated for a school district that wants the option of implementing a virtual or remote program of instruction, having such a program count toward the 180-day requirement in accordance with the new provisions of the NJSA 18A:7F-9. And lastly, PNR 5751, sexual harassment of students, which is another mandated policy. This policy and regulation guide 5751 have been rewritten, and school districts should replace their existing policy with these updated revisions. That concludes my reports.
Thank you very much. Mr. Turnbull, Finance Administration, please.
Thank you, sir. The committee also met last Tuesday at 6:30. A couple of highlights. The audit appears to be complete, coming to an end for 2021. And once again, the financial state of the district looks very healthy. It also appears that we're going to go over budget in our out-of-district placement tuition. As such, administration requested using $300,000 of our $775,000 extraordinary aid to cover these unforeseen costs, and the committee agreed. The administration had also discussed with us that they've begun an exercise to begin assessing maintenance priorities throughout the district, and with the healthy maintenance reserve of well over $2 million, the committee agreed. And finally, it appears that as a result of the audit, we will be adding, and Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, approximately $750,000 to both our current capital and maintenance reserves, which is an incredible accomplishment. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. That concludes the committee liaison report section of the agenda. Moving on to public be heard. As a reminder, when submitting questions or comments via email, no, we're not doing email at this point. If anybody wants to come to the mic, please state your first and last name, address, and your question. Public be heard. Seeing no one, we'll close out the public be heard section of the agenda. We'll go around the room with new or old business, and we'll conclude with any general comments and questions from the board. We'll start on your end, Ms. Arntrop. Any old business or new business? Or Mr. Palouse, actually.
I'm good, thank you. You knew that, that's why you moved on.
Two things from me. Last Wednesday, I had the opportunity to speak with the freshman class. I was in touch with Ms. Weger and Mr. Kadomo regarding an anti-bullying seminar. It's something personally I've been involved in for the last decade in helping enact the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. It was great to talk with the freshman class. Tough crowd at times, but on their cell phones. But once we got into smaller groups, and there were some really meaningful discussions, I think, that went on about kindness, compassion, empathy. So thank you. I'm grateful for that opportunity. And second, I am grateful to the board here for the opportunity to be here for the last 6 or 7 months or so. I don't know what'll happen, in the next couple weeks, but I am grateful that you guys chose me for this spot here. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Zerko, any old?
Yeah, there's one thing, I don't know how many of you have heard, but one of my old favorite topics, an Achilles heel, what is it? PCTI. The Board of Commissioners of Passaic County have seen fit to pass another bond for another $25 million. So who knows what that could mean to us. The taxpayers obviously don't realize it. It'll probably take somewhere between maybe another $1 million or $2 million right out of our budget, right away from our kids, right away from the classroom, sports, etc. But again, people don't realize it. And with this amount of money and the expansion that they're looking to do, you may even see Manchester Regional go bye-bye. You agree with that, Ricky? A little bit?
I think there's a possibility.
There's a distinct possibility that they'll knock down one. Their goal is probably to knock down all of them eventually, and I think that's coming. So that's my old business comment.
Can we make comments on his comment?
Yeah, comment.
I think it's something. I think it's something that there is a big miscommunication out there with the public. They feel that anybody who speaks up against PCTI is comparing like our school to their school, and it's not anything against their education system. It's more about the funding system.
Correct.
And when we need to do something, we need to go to our taxpayers and ask them for permission to expand. When a district that is pulling funds from us and everybody else in Passaic County can just get free money to do what they want to do with it and expand and grow, it's really not a collaboration of education, it's actually a competition. So we're trying to educate our public students from K all the way through 12, and we're losing money to do that, and all the districts in Passaic County are going to continue to lose money because we have an entity that is under the guise of public education, but it's really a for-profit, and I know you can't really say that, but it's set up like a business. So if they create a new class and they attract more than it costs, they're making money. And then it continues to churn and grow. And when do they start to come after the public education on the K through 8 level? And how deep are they going to continue to go into the pockets of the entire county for one school? Now, listen, anybody can go to that school and goes there for a purpose. I have family that goes there. It's not against the education. It's against the fact that it's an unfair playing field, and that's what we need to do. If you're going to continue to take all this state funding and grow, then you should give the school districts, the sending districts, a little bit of a break in the amount of money that you draw from us, because it's just going to continue to make the majority of Passaic County less education, a weaker education, while their school continues to grow. So that's, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on there because I think too many people think that we're against PCTI.
You're right, it's a very good point.
And that's not the case.
It's all about the funding that people don't understand and don't realize.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I appreciate it.
And Mr. Zerko, the only comment I would add to that is not necessarily about the funding or anything related to that. My comment would be in regards to that trade student you know, we can't, we don't,
Right.
we don't have the resources
100% out.
for the trades. And at some point, the understanding was that the vocational school was gonna handle that. But, you know, by their own admission, it is a competitive environment, and it is college prep. So I'm speaking out on behalf of that true trade student that we can't service,
Correct.
and they don't have an outlet for. So what happens to that trade student? You know, that's the only thing I'd like to comment on that.
No, you're right, but that was the original purpose of the county vocational schools throughout the state of New Jersey. And they've obviously gotten away, moved far away from it at our cost. And in the time of the world we live in, where we discuss equality and equity, we're all going to be falling behind. And that's the shame of it. People don't understand how it's financed. You brought up a good point. The management levels, the levels of administration, it's just out of balance. We can't do that.
And it's not
Can't afford
personal.
to.
And it's not personal against
No,
anybody. That
absolutely not.
At all.
We all look for our best for our children.
We have to cut while they expand.
Exactly.
Thank you. Ms. Cox?
So a perfect segue.
Da-da-da-da-da.
I was going to talk about how we can bring more PR, as I am now on the campaign trail. You know, we know what we know, but I think what we lose sight of is what the public doesn't know. And just a small aside, going back to the PCTI and the funding, we did approach PCTI 9 years ago and asked them if they would be willing to do a cost share in that we would educate the students in their core classes here. Darlene Markman, so maybe it wasn't 9 years ago. We would educate their core classes here, and then they could go through the more technical classes, which seemed to make sense to us, but we were told absolutely not. That is the model used in other counties.
That used to be the case.
So-
Years ago, that was the case. There was a partnership.
To keep the kids in their homeschool with their comrades and their friends and play the sports here and go for the more technical classes, and that was not even something they were willing to discuss. So that is something that did come up years ago. In any event, as we look, I do have a 9th grade son myself. He does have friends that went there, and just looking at some of the things that I think that are jewels here that we could promote a little bit more. I do have a friend who has an 8th grade son who's in the marching band here. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cerrito, that the high school marching band allows 8th graders to do. That is single-handedly going to keep this child here. He was going to go to PCTI, but he is now so entrenched in the band. And it's such a great idea, though. Like, what else can we do like that? What other things can we trickle down to the middle school? Like, our broadcasting teacher here at the high school is phenomenal. Can we make commercials and just start showing them, for different things that we're doing? Love the idea that we had the 8th grade, that we had with the boards and when they walked around. The like open house of things that happen. Maybe we can make it like a tailgate or something where families come, during the day or on the weekends. Also, a STEM camp. People are looking for this. Our competition is offering this. Can we do something where we have an after-school STEM camp? Just things that make us awesome, and we know that we do these things. I'm trying to get out there and tell them everywhere that I go. We have the dual enrollment courses. People just don't know. It's like I said, we know how awesome we are. So I'm trying to promote, but anything that we can do to involve the middle school students in high school activities, I think, would just be so beneficial to us going forward. And I did not plan this with Liz.
No, I know.
I had these things written down already. I had these things written down already. But we've talked about this. We had a potential PR person on a budget of 1 year. We were going to hire someone to potentially promote the district. It just is what it is, but it is something that we're up against. That is all.
Richard?
I'm not posting it in, but I will follow up on that one.
I mean, from the band model that you were saying, I wonder if we could do that with most things at the high school.
Right.
There was like an 8th grade day for football, for volleyball, for soccer.
But they
for-
actually participate in the band, so like maybe we could do it with plays, or like it's not just a day. He is on the marching band for the high school.
Abby, my son's a senior, and he started at 8th grade.
It's
So it's
amazing.
been going on for a while now.
I mean, they usually start to like talk about going somewhere else before 8th grade, but it's still really a great idea.
Could kids ever do that with sports, Mrs. Rita, or is that because of NCAA?
That's an insurance issue.
Yeah, you can't have eighth
Well, I was
graders
thinking that
playing
too.
high school kids,
Yeah.
that's an issue. Not to mention, we have, a lot of them are playing, but we do have some extracurricular activities, sports in the middle school, not as many as the high school, obviously. Some kids also play in town rec programs as well, so.
I'm sure a lot of them come anyway, but I don't even think like an 8th grade night, for the football game, 8th grade night for the
We do
basketball.
that, they do bring the Cubs, the junior program up, the football program. They did that this year, I know, already.
Yeah. That's fun. I just actually have a comment of the PTO, Mr. Palouse was saying with all the Facebook pages. Believe it or not, there are people who are not on Facebook. I mean, does the... I know there's 2 billion, but in my house there's someone who's not on. Do they do like email or through real time, or do we have a page, a web page with like all fundraisers that somebody could go to? Or...
Chris, we tried that, but it's so difficult. We tried to, it's just so challenging because people don't send it. We've asked them to send it. They don't, they forget. We tried that a couple of years ago. I tried to create one page and it's literally chasing these people. Send me the flyers, send me the flyers. And by the time I get it, it's over. It just didn't work.
It's okay, I'm just asking the question.
We tried it, we did. We tried it and it never got off the ground because people just don't. PTOs have their own websites that are linked to our pages, but we don't have like a one page with everything on it. Because I don't get, I didn't know about the cooler. I don't even get some of those things. So, they do, normally what they try to do is the school principals will send them out with their weekly reports, but obviously if you don't have kids in that school, you're not going to get it. So that, but they usually do, like, the high school will send out the high school PTO stuff, the Lincoln Middle School does the same. But, like I said, we tried to coordinate one page, it was really a challenge to get people to send me the stuff, it just never got off the ground.
And there is that Facebook page for all the fundraisers. There is already one for the different ones, but even then, it's not populated with all the different activities from the different PTOs. So even within Facebook, that one page that's supposed to compile everything, it doesn't.
Thank you.
I'm assuming at this point, we're kind of like a blend between general comments and new comments.
It sounds like,
right?
yeah.
We're kind of blending.
Yeah.
So I have a comment under general comments. I'll speak on behalf of my family member. My nephew went to the open house and he was ecstatic about it, and he was really optimistic and looking forward, to getting there now, right? And now he's like really excited, and it was nice to see and hear from him, and wanted to share that with me. And I think that speaks a lot about what was done that night. And to the point of what you said, Abby, I think that also kind of piggybacks with that like PR campaign, if you will. I know it sounds as if it never was thought that would be a conversation we would have to have or revisit, but it may be something that we may need to, especially based on what Mr. Turco said. It's sad to say that, but I do feel like some of the feedback, even though my children personally are not at the high school level yet, a lot of the feedback or sentiment that I get from parents, are those middle school kids that are approaching high school and struggling with that debate, and how they can, they want to keep the kids here, but there's those things that maybe pull them a little bit in a different direction. And I think if they only knew
some of the things that our district does offer more, because maybe all of us can't, you know, or we all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? But we can't necessarily get out there and speak to it as efficiently as we would like to. You know, maybe that's something we could look at, because I think it's a real issue right now, and I can't tell you how many times I was approached just because I am a board member, where that's one of the big topics a parent will say to me is like, you know, what do you think? You know, my kid's in this, or you know, we're looking to go this direction. You know, that's what, you know, their expectations are when approaching a board member, at least in my experience. And I think that's something that maybe we can look at a little bit more to help our district, because the overwhelming sentiment is that they want to stay. They're just looking for that reason, right? What is that attraction that's keeping them? And I think everybody said it, right? Nobody's trying to not, right? I'm a contractor, right? I'm in construction. I would advocate for the individual who's going to want to go to a trade school, right? I would never stop that, because I think that was what the intent was. However, I think it's gotten so distorted because of what's happened with the funding, and it's unfortunate, right? And so I think we need to show the parents in this district why they need to keep it here, because we do have an unbelievable district here, and I mean, that's a testament to the teachers. So, thank you.
Mr. President, if I could stop in for 1 second. In concert with what Mr. Totaro is saying, I did bring this up in committee. I don't know how it came up, but I asked Mr. Sprito if we could start conducting exit interviews with the students and ask why they were leaving, if they felt comfortable. If it comes out that 27 people one year wanted to be, you know, professional poets, and we didn't have a poetry class, you know, that's a terrible example, but if it's something highly specific that we could replicate, I'm really into poetry right now, that we could replicate, turns out Ms. Vassalone is doing exit interviews, we haven't yet started to dig through that information. So if that is something the board is serious about, and we would like to know why people are leaving, and if there is something we can do to counteract that, if there is a common theme, if it's sports, if it's this, if it's that, we can always try to tap into that.
Real quick, just to echo on Mr. Tara's point, unfortunately, COVID, one of the many challenges that it has brought about is not being able to showcase, you know, as the chair of BNG, all these beautiful things that have been done as a result of the referendum. So, you know, once we get the opportunity to showcase those, and as people come to the buildings, you know, I think that's going to almost speak for itself. But
I do agree.
thank you, Mr. Clark.
I'm good, Mr. President. Thank you.
Councilor Morel?
I just want to say that I attended the open house at the high school. It's always a sense of pride to attend there when I see all the different programs that we have. Even in these times, I felt that it was well attended for the people. And for me, I always walk away that I think that we're a small but mighty school. That's it.
Very good. Since the items got distorted at this point, anybody else? Any comments? Anything on close round?
I didn't make a general
Go
comment.
ahead.
Me again. Sorry. I just wanted to thank everybody who visited the Hawthorne Board of Education table at Hawthorne Day. Several of us were there, and we were able to sell, or I think they were able to make, $500 for the Bear Cake and the Hawthorne High School student store. So we gladly sold all the wares. We had requests every year for things in other sizes, and so it's always a very popular place to be, and we are happy to engage with the community and meet people. I see names and but putting them into a table. We just want to say thank you to everyone who came by, said hi, and purchased.
Anybody else? The only thing that I'll add is two things happening before our next meeting. The NJSBA, the virtual school board convention, October 26th to the 28th, and also the election. Just want to encourage the public to get out there and vote. If you are voting by a provisional ballot or by a mail-in ballot, just want to remind you that you actually have to flip the ballot to the back, and you get to vote for up to 3 board members out of the ones that are listed there. So definitely want to encourage the public to get out there and vote. That will conclude our public portion of the meeting. We are going to go ahead and go to private session. We have a private teachers association matter and HIV. Be resolved that the Hawthorne Board of Education convenes an executive session to discuss exempt matters pertaining to, what was just mentioned, the HIV and the teachers association matter, and that public action may not be taken. Be further resolved that the minutes of the executive session will be made available upon a determination by the board that the disclosure of the minutes will not detrimentally affect any right or interest of the board, and the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Motion to go into private.
So moved.
Second.
First, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mrs. Erentraub?
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morel?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Shataro?
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
No, it's good.
keep in mind in our contract.
We get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morel?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Rayshaw?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Flumigo?
Yes.
So, Cruz, right now, technically, we're in violation of our
Yes.
contract.
Good night.
I